Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here, dropping in on you. Hope everybody is having a great day. And of course, as soon as I start the video, they start working on something outside my office. Uh, but I'm going to go ahead and try to get this video done, doing it live because I want to kind of interact with you guys in case you have any questions. First of all, the announcement that uh, book number 25 officially releases Tuesday the 9th. So this coming Tuesday is the official release. I'm excited about it. It is The War on Black Wealth, Breaking the Code. In celebration of it, I am going to introduce you into many of the concepts that are coming one video at a time, just to kind of give you an idea of what's in this book. I'm excited about it. The link, if you want to order it, is in the book. In the description box. Also, don't forget to support the work we do at the Odyssey Project if you so choose, but the link is in there. Another link is in there that I think is extremely important. Also, towards the top of the description box is financial literacy for teens, how to introduce financial knowledge, financial literacy, and the basics to your child. That's something that they need to start learning long before they enter adulthood. The mindset about money is so important. And so today I'm actually going to talk to you about, to me, I think the most underused and hidden secret to wealth building. You talk to people and you ask people who talk about investing, but really aren't really investment savvy or haven't spent a lot of time in the arena of investing, and they've heard and talked. One of the things that pops up all the time is mutual funds. The truth of the matter is actively managed mutual funds don't do well. But that's what everybody hears. Mutual funds, mutual funds. Well, the truth of the matter is actively managed mutual funds fail. The managers of actively managed mutual funds fail about 96% of the time. A study done over a 20-year period found that. Matter of fact, they found that out of the 4% that are successful, it's never the same one. So it's not like somebody or one or two have the secret and they're winning. It's that different times somebody hits and gets lucky. Where we found that there was a consistency at winning was in passively managed mutual funds indexes like the Vanguard 500, the S&P 500, which sort of mirror each other. And what it basically is, it's a collective indexed fund where the top 500 performers on the market are kind of grouped together. You get to invest in them. Over the course of a period of 20 years, a study was done and on Q between 8.2 and almost 10% compounded interest. Why is this important? Because compound growth is one of the areas where we fail horribly. We're unaware of it. We don't understand it. And we normally suffer in reverse. When I say suffer in reverse, what do I mean? I mean that most people, not just Black people, but right now we're talking about Blacks building wealth, but most people, and let's say especially Blacks, on the flip side of compound growth, we are in compound debt. We are buying things that are compounding in debt over time. In other words, we'll take a $250,000, $350,000 home and pay close to $1 million on it over the course of 30 years because it is compounded in interest annually. Well, on the flip side of that, people who are investing in, say, the Vanguard 500 or the S&P 500 are recouping on average 8.2 to 10% annually. Doesn't sound like much except for the fact that it's compounded. What does it mean? Every year you're putting money in every month, and that money is adding to what's there, and then it's compounded. So there's this stack. So imagine it's 10% of 100, then it's 10% of 200 on top of what the 10% produced. So say 10% of 100 is $10. So now it's $110, but you add another one. So now it's $210 that the 10% is multiplying on. You get how this works? So let's say, for instance, if you started something as simple as putting $400 or $500 into a Vanguard or an S&P 20 years ago, you're retired at 40. If you started at 20 and you did it for 20 years, you're retired at 40. That is the beauty of compound growth. And there are other things to get into, but the Vanguard, which was actually created by Jack Bogle, I want to say maybe in the 70s, but the S&P has been around for a while. and they produce consistently. Obviously, they're going to take hits when the market takes hit because companies are taking hits, but the companies in there have proven themselves to be able to survive bear markets and even crashes, and so they recover. Something else I'm going to say for people who are thinking about jumping into the stock market. And by the way, the stock market isn't the only place to invest. It is probably the quickest way to get rich, but it's also the quickest way to go broke. If you don't know what you're doing, definitely don't jump off in there without, uh, maybe you can take some safe ones. There are definitely some safe stocks that you can pretty much get into. And unless the world turns upside down, they're going to be okay. One way that the world can turn upside down is everybody talks about a market crash. What I'm more concerned about is the US dollar crashing. The US dollar isn't backed by anything of value outside of debt. It's literally a promissory note with nothing backing it. And it's losing value at a rapid pace. A lot of what you see in the increase in price and inflation isn't because inflation happens for a number of reasons. High demand, low supply, uh, prices go up, they become inflated. But inflation also happens when the value of a currency goes down. So it takes more of that currency to buy the same thing. And so now you're spending X amount of dollars. For instance, um, even though John Rockefeller, in the number of dollars he possessed, was not as rich as Elon Musk. When you take what that money was worth at the time he had it, he's 2 times more wealthy. He was 2 times more wealthier, meaning he possessed more power, more fluidity in what he was able to do and control than Elon Musk, because the dollar had more value then. It was under a gold standard then. It had something of extreme wealth and stability backing it. There was a concerted effort between 1913, 1933, and 1971, where systematically money was literally ravaged from, and there's a difference between money and currency. And we're going to cover all of that over a period of time. But I want to really introduce you to something that is something that you can immediately get into, and that's compound growth. Plus, you need to get into it early to take effects of it, because it's not a get rich fast thing. It's a growth thing. It's the way that Theodore Roosevelt worked at UPS for 30 years, making at most $14,000 a year. This obviously was a while ago, but making $14,000 a year and retired with a net worth of $72 million. Compound growth. It's putting money in. And he had a wealthy friend that simply told him, take 20% of what you make, I don't care how much it hurts you, and put it into this. And over time, it's just compounding. The same way your debt is compounding on your house, that you're paying so much more for it, the way that on any other account where you pay way more for a car if you have to pay that car out over time than if you pay cash for it. Same thing, but in reverse. You're getting the payment. You're investing in something, and it's compounding back to you. We're going to talk about income annuities. We're going to talk about a bunch of things. All the things are in the book. Yeah. The first part of the book is about all the ways that we have been inhibited and blocked, and the things we face in this country that have literally been obstacles in stopping us from achieving wealth. But here's the thing. Something I believe, something I've lived by, something I've been blessed through, is the belief that we don't get where we're going in life based off of our circumstances, based off our conditions. We get where we're going based off our decisions. You make a decision to do something different, you get something different. You make a decision to come out of something, you start to look for a way to come out of it. You start to work your way out. It is in accepting things that you remain where you're at. It's in believing what you've been given and presented as being total truth, that you accept, this is what we do. This is how it is. It's just what happens. I'll never be able to get it. Only certain type of people end up. No. Systematically choose how you do. Here's another problem that I see, that I touch on in the book, is because we're consumer minded, we waste money. Let me tell you something. There are 4 things that I have learned about the best investors. When I studied the investors, I didn't want to study the people that, I look at and I say this. I wanted to study the ones that just win. You look at them and go, damn. So I'm talking Jack Vogel. I'm talking Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio runs a $165 billion hedge fund. David Swensen turned is it Yale or Princeton's, turned their endowment fund from 2 billion into 22 billion in less than 10 years. Warren Buffett, and a few others that I studied. These are dudes that are sick in the game. And what I found is there are four things that they share in common. The first thing that I realized is they think different. Most people, when you talk about investing, when you're talking about building wealth, first thing that comes up someone's mind is making money. I tell people all the time, anybody can make money. It's not how much money you make. It's what you do with the money you have that's going to determine how wealthy you become. And people say, well, you got to have a lot of money. No, it's what you do with what you have. Because I can tell you this, there's a guy, my God, a black man, and I cannot think of his name. He worked his entire life as entry-level worker. I think he spent most of his time as a parking lot attendant in the financial district. A black man. I think the most he ever made in his entire life was $12 an hour. When he retired, he was worth over $1 million. You want to know why? In that financial district, every time somebody came out that worked in that district, he was asking questions, and they got to know him, and so they got to sharing with him. He took that knowledge and he invested in it, he grew it, and then he passed it on to his children, and he retired much wealthier than what his salary would say. So it's not the salary, it's what you do with it. It's how you look at it, how you treat it. And the problem is a lot of us are consumer minded. So when we get a little money, we want to show we have it. So we go out and buy things that depreciate in value. Anything that depreciates in value works against your net worth. Anything that you have to pay notes on is considered debt. Debt works against your net worth. Your net worth are your assets minus your debt. So if I've got $1 million in assets, but I've got $1.5 million in debt, I'm broke. Don't matter how much money you got. If you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, his rich dad was his best friend's father. His poor dad was his biological father, who was the director of education for the state of Hawaii, made 6 figures. Why was he considered broke dad? Because their debt exceeded what his dad made. So if his dad lost his job, they were going to be homeless in a short period of time. It's not how much you make, it's what you do with it. It's how you look at money, how you see money. Are you chasing it? Or are you taking what you get and invested it in things that appreciate in value? Anything that appreciates in value is growing your wealth. That's why I tell people all the time, in a time when the US dollar is decreasing in value, having cash on hand is not wealth. Why? Because what's sitting in the bank is, even if it's getting 3% interest, it's devaluating at a rate much higher than the interest that it's appreciating on. Okay. And so another thing, we are always taught that your house is an asset. Well, not initially. Your house doesn't become an asset. Your house is a liability. Why? Because when you first get it, it puts you in debt. It puts you in debt at the amount that you owe the bank. And it does not become an asset until it is no longer upside down, meaning that you have more equity in the home than you own in the home. Then whatever you have in equity plus is your asset. So if I'm $5,000 in equity over what I owe, I have a $5,000 asset. That's what my house is, a $5,000 asset, no more. And while I may be able to draw out what I have in equity if I need it, it's not considered an asset because I owe more on it than I actually have in equity. So it actually cancels out the equity until I have a plus equity. So that's something that you have to understand as well. But the 4 things that I found in these billionaire investors, first thing, where most people are looking for how much money they can make when they invest, the first thing that goes through their mind is, how can I protect myself from losing? So they're actually more concerned about not losing than they are making money. It's interesting. That's the first thing that I noticed. Another thing that I found really interesting, because when I was first trying to learn about investing years ago, and I was talking to people, it was like, you got to put a whole lot in to get a little, you're going to put a lot in, You know, you might get 10% return, you might get 5% return. And I'm like, okay, over time in compound, that's cool. But if I'm trying to make short-term investments, how much is that really bringing to me based on the risk? And so what I found out with these guys, there's this thing called asymmetric risk reward. What's asymmetric risk reward? Asymmetric risk reward is they actually look for things where they are investing a little to get a lot. In other words, where one person may be putting in $8 to get 10 back, they're looking for opportunities they can put $2 in and get 10 back. So they're going to recoup a lot more money quicker, and they're taking less of a risk. They're getting the same $10, but they're getting it for $2 versus $8. That's an asymmetric risk reward. So the risk is always less than the reward. Whereas the flip side of how most people think that I have to risk more in order to get less, well, they actually risk less to get more. It's called asymmetric risk reward. The next thing is they are very, very tax aware. They know before they enter an investment what their tax liability would be. They're finding ways to actually minimize tax liability. And there are a couple of ways that you can do that. Obviously, one of the most common ways is how you develop your investment company. Is your investment company going to be hidden under the umbrella of a corporation? If it's hidden under the umbrella of a C Corp, then any of its subsidiaries can hide. But the problem with C Corps are that there's this thing called double taxation, but it's still better than trying to do it under an individual investment where your personal liabilities as a taxpayer is much higher. Another way to do it would be what's called an unincorporated business trust. Now, what it does is it turns the company into a trust. And I have a business associate that I've known for a while. I consider him a friend, and we talk, and he handles all of that stuff. Matter of fact, we're actually meeting this Monday to talk about converting what I'm doing completely into a trust for the next stage of what I'm doing. And this guy, when it comes to trust, he can help you with trust that's going to protect your tax. He can help you with trust that's going to protect your estate. A lot of people talk about wills, and wills are important. Why? Because wills are supposed to be the way that you can pass down your wealth. It's one way of passing generational wealth. Well, actually, it's a problem with that, because even with a will, people think, well, you got to have a will, you're going to end up in probate. You can end up in probate with a will, and it can happen real easily. How can you have a will and it still end up in probate? All it takes is one person to legally challenge the will, and now we're going to probate. How do you get around that? You create a living trust, or you create an operational trust. There are a number of different trusts, but the ultimate thing is you want everything left to the trust, and then you have trustees that are assigned the responsibility of operating the trust based off of the stipulations within the trust. So you can literally dictate how your money is distributed, what is distributed on, and everything. It's real good when you're using insurance policies as a means of passing down wealth. Because now if you've got a $500,000, a $1 million policy, or whatever it is, $250,000, whatever, that's a means of passing it on. The problem is that most people leave it to a beneficiary. That beneficiary is not obligated to your will. That's something that most people don't get. So I left a will and it says, do this and do this. No, that will does not cover it, because the policy, if it's left to a beneficiary, is not a part of the estate. The policy doesn't become a part of the estate until there's a trust, and the trust becomes the beneficiary. Now the trust controls how the money is distributed. So that's how you make sure everything happens and nobody comes in and nobody comes in and does anything. There's somebody that keeps coming on, and none of my administrators on here trolling with bull crap. But anyway, that is a way of doing that. So they're going to, let's see, they're going to look for ways to ensure or minimize their risk of loss. They're going to move in with a focus on asymmetric risk reward. They are going to make sure they're aware of all their tax liabilities, and they're going to minimize their tax liabilities through proper planning. and setting up the right types of structures through which to manage their money. And there are so many different ways of doing it. Just a corporation in and of itself can operate and cover a lot of money because you only pay taxes on profit. All expenses can be justified if any expense that can be justified through expenditure through the company isn't taxed. So it's just a bunch of little things that you can learn that is going to help you. That's why business ownership is so important to wealth, not just because you got a money-making mechanism. It's because it gives you a bunch of ways to cover yourself tax-wise. It's so much that we don't understand that puts us behind the eight ball, and we get frustrated. We all, I mean, how many, I think for the whole time Donald Trump was in office, people were pissed off because he wasn't paying. They felt he didn't pay enough taxes or he wasn't paying any taxes. He's not the only one. Anybody who understands how things go, there are literally big ways to sit up and literally reduce how much you pay. It's just that people who are good with money are good at knowing what those opportunities and loopholes are. Whereas in people who are sit up and told this is what you have to do, just do it. Start reading. Everything I share with you isn't for you to consume and say, well, that's up. That's what's up. It's for you to sit up and say, man, I'm going to go look that up. I'm going to go figure that out. I'm going to read that. I'm going to learn about that. Unincorporated business trust, you definitely want to learn about it. What's the differences in how you can incorporate your company? How does it protect you against taxes? You need to understand that taxes is one of the ways we lose a vast majority of the money that we have coming in. So the final way that they think, and all of them have, every last one of them have these four things in common. The final way is they don't put all their eggs in one basket. They diversify. You can call it hedging. Hedging simply means that I'm going to have multiple things going on where I'm creating multiple streams of income by way of investment so that across the board, I have money coming in. And because I've done my homework, because I understand how the market is working, the chances of all of my investments taking at the same time are not high. What does that mean? If something's going wrong, if something takes a hit, it's going to be hedged and held together until it recovers by the other investment. So I'm never going to be in a situation, rarely, I mean, you can have a complete global market crash and then somebody's going to take hits no matter what they do. But when you're sitting up and talking about different types of investments across different commodities and different assets, so we're talking stock market, real estate, venture capital, and I mean, it's so many different things that you can get into. The Forex market, and so many other things. But you're looking at these different things: gold, precious and metals and precious jewels, any type of hard asset, something that is like commercial real estate, residential real estate, open real estate, which is just property with nothing. All of these different things are mechanisms through which you can invest and hold. But it's diversifying across assets. Why? Because it's hedging against a loss in any one particular area. And that's important. So you have to have an understanding. The biggest thing, again, I've said this, and not just when it comes to wealth building, when it comes to money, when it comes to all that, I've said this almost in every area where we're suffering right now. One of our biggest problems is we don't know how things work. We don't understand how things work. So what do? We tend to react to things. We tend to react to something going wrong instead of being able to respond by way of understanding, by way of protocol, by way of training, by way of experience. Hey, this is what I do. Another thing that I see a lot of people do, and Ray Dalio, the guy that I said that manages the largest hedge fund in the world, one of the things that he said in an interview is the stock market is the only place where things go on sale and people panic. And it is. That's where crisis investors get off. Why? Because most people don't realize that you haven't experienced the loss in the stock market until you sell. Okay, say for instance, you go in and you've got, let's keep it simple, $100 worth of stock. You invested $10, it went up to $100. And it's sitting there. All of a sudden it starts to drop, and it drops drastically. It's down to 50, it's down to 30, it's down to 20. And you're sitting up and saying, man, after a while, I'm going to be down and I'm going to be starting over, or I'm going to lose money. It's down to 15. So what do? You panic and you sell. Well, at the moment you sell, you realized your loss. Until then, you still had a chance for your stock to recover. It's not a loss until you actually complete the transaction. At that point, you still own the stock and you now can trust. And that's another reason why you do your homework. Can the companies that you're investing in withstand a hard hit in the market and recover? There are companies like Coca-Cola, like Nike, like McDonald's, like Exxon, like Chevron, like so many different companies. Just take a look at the S&P 500 and you can see individual companies that have over and over and over again, every 4 or 5 years, taken hits in the market when the market took a dive or engaged in bear activity, and they recovered. Well, I can trust that company's going to recover. So when it starts to get bad, I don't panic because it's in the panic and selling that I lose and they win. It's a what's called a zero-sum game when you play in the stock market. What's a zero-sum game? In order for somebody to win, somebody has to lose. So when you sell your stock after they have tumbled in price and this guy comes along and buys, and that has always been something that, like, when I didn't understand the market, but I would see what was going on and I was trying to learn it. Something the question always popped up, and I finally figured out why. If it's crashing and I'm trying to sell it, who's the dummy buying it? Well, actually, the person buying it is the smart guy. The person selling it is the dummy. Why? That should always be a question you should ask yourself when stuff is happening. If I'm panicking and getting rid of it, who's the person buying it? The person buying it is called a crisis investor. He doesn't invest, or she doesn't invest, until the market hits crisis state and everybody panics and starts selling for pennies on the dollar. Why? Because that person has done their homework and they know what stocks are going to recover. So they buy a stock that has tumbled for $5 a share, $4 a share. And then before you know it, it's back up to $80 a share, $100 a share, $400 a share, $600 a share. You know, like Tesla just out through the roof. But they got it when it was $2 a share because somebody sold it instead of holding on to it. The long game is, for me, the stock market. I don't do day trading. And that's where you can get rich in a day, but you can also lose all your money in a day because you're trying to trust movement of the stock market and you're playing it. And it's real tricky. But when you do your investments and you say, okay, I'm in for the long haul, I'm going to put this on this, put this on this, put this on this. And the thing is, the stock market better not be your only place that you play. It's a place to go, but it shouldn't be your only place. You should be looking at other things. You should invest in your own company. One of the ways that you can actually reach millionaire status is by building a company of your own and getting the valuation of your company over $1 million, cutting your debt to below whatever it is over $1 million, and by virtue of asset possession, you are now a millionaire. The average millionaire doesn't have $1 million in the bank account. The average millionaire has $1 million in assets. Now, the extremely wealthy have millions in the bank. But even they have financial managers that are helping them hedge and hide that money into places that appreciate. Anything that's just sitting there, even if it's getting 3% in interest, is losing because the value of the dollar is deflating at a higher rate than 3%. So then you're actually losing money when it's sitting in the bank. Having cash on hand isn't cool to some people who don't know money. There's some things you have to understand. You want your money invested in something that's appreciating. And again, there's a difference in money and cash or currency. Cash is a promissory note for money. In other words, money used to be gold, jewelry, sheep, everything else. Well, just imagine trying to carry around a bunch of gold. It's heavy, whatever. Somebody decided, got smart. Look, hey man, I'm a ironsmith, locksmith, whatever it was. I have safes. You can keep your gold in my safe. I'm going to give you a promissory note, or IOU, or whatever you want to call it, telling you how much gold you have in my safe, and this is what it's worth. This paper is worth what's in there. Now I can go to someone else and say, this is how much I have in so-and-so's safe. I'm going to give you 10% of that for this. And I'm going to write a note to him, giving it to you to subtract that 10% from what I have in there. Now you got it. And that began the exchange of currency. It was easy to exchange. It has no value in of itself. It's not backed. Well, in 1971, when it was taken off the gold standard, it stopped having value. But because we had it as the global reserve currency, everybody in the world pretty much exchanges and uses and transacts the US dollar. It was hard to push back on it. But we're getting to a point that we are hoping that a bunch of countries don't start calling us on what should be backing that dollar, because then we've got a problem. So again, right now will be a good time to start finding places to invest that cash. And that's the problem that, grandma and them had. You got money under the mattress. That money ain't worth jack compared to what it was 40 years ago when you put it under there. It's about understanding and having a relationship with money. It's about, for us, it's about showing I got a little money. So what I drive tells people I have money. What I wear tells people I have money. How many rooms and square feet I have tells people I have money. But if all that stuff is costing me money, how much money do I really have? Now, this troll keeps popping up with this bull crap on here, and now they done found a way to block me from blocking them. People have nothing but time on their hands to do stupid stuff. But anyway, I've gotten what I wanted to share with you out today. We're going to come back, and every day we're going to talk about different aspects. I mean, I cover everything from Reconstruction era, Black codes. Black codes devastated our chances of building wealth early. Convict leasing, redlining, urban renewal, benign neglect, gentrification, mass incarceration. All these things had a role in how we do the failure to gain reparations and repair for the breach and the damage that was done from slavery. All of these things have a play. I talk about reparations in depth, and I talk about why it's important, but why we can't wait on it, why we have to start building. Again, life isn't about your circumstances and conditions. It's about your decisions. You don't always get to control. You don't always get to control your conditions and situations and circumstances, but you do control your decisions. Your decisions are going to ultimately determine your outcomes. So while we've been put in some pretty precarious situations over the last 400 years, what we end up is ultimately going to be based on the decisions we make. How do we move with money? What do we think about money? How we function with money? Not what they're going to do, but what we do. And that's what this book is about. This book is about, if you take it, there are mechanisms out there that racism can't stop. And those are the places you operate in. Those are the things you do. Those are the mechanisms you have. And the problem is not enough of us have learned them. So I took time to just really sit down and say, okay, Rick, what do you have to offer in this? And I took time from the things that I do and the things that I love and the things that I'm trying to accomplish and do for my family, projecting generations down the line, to share with you, because I want multiple people to do it. And it's too easy not to do. Everybody can start an account. Hell, if you got Cash App, you can trade stocks. You can literally get on Cash App and go to the S&P 500, go to Nike. I'm telling you some places that's gonna be okay in the long run. Too many people like sneakers now. Go figure. Invest in things you believe in, but also invest in things that you can do the research on. And then you can sit up and see what the long-term impact is going to be. That's what I want you to focus on, is that I'm going to consistently do these. I'm going to try to do them one a day. The weekend, I don't know, because I got a lot of stuff going on, but I'm going to try to do one a day. And it's going to be on the things that are in this book. And the link to the book, which officially drops Tuesday, the 9th. And I'm excited about it. Book number 25, The War on Black Wealth, Breaking the Code. The code has been broken. We just don't know it. But I brought it out. I mean, literally, think implement from income annuities, compound growth, uh, real estate, business enterprise, insurance. Oh my God, we're underusing insurance as a wealth building mechanism. All of these things we're going to talk about, but it's in there. Also, for you that are new or don't know how to introduce it to your children, there's a guide, a financial literacy for teens, but it can actually be for preteens as well. We need to be teaching our children about money. They need to understand money long before they have it in their hand, because if they don't, they'll misuse it, they'll mishandle it, and it'll end up in someone else's hands, as it does so often in our community. I want to start holding on to and multiplying what's moving in our community, and I'm going to do everything within my power to help with that. So again, if you look inside of the description box, you can order the book. You can also get the guide for teens. If you know somebody that has a teen, or you got a teen or a young child and you want to introduce it, it's real simple to present. It's real simple to follow, and it's a start. Or if you have no understanding about finance, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a bunch of us don't. If you don't, that's a good place for you to start. But in this book, we're going hard, and I'm excited about it. And I want you to be excited about it, not because it's my 25th book, but because if you get to the end of this book, there's going to be at least one thing you can do that will change your life. That's the beauty about this. And so I'm going to challenge you to do that. Do something to change your life. And there's no excuse, absolutely no excuse. Anybody can do it. On that note, I'm out of here. Everybody have an unbelievable day. I'll be seeing you soon. Take care.